So today I'm in Kinnegad with Elizabeth Myra Sherry, and it's the 12th of November 2024. And Myra, you're going to talk a little bit about your journey as a midwife and how you ended up in the army as a midwife.
Yes.
So I suppose take me back to when you started training, really.
Yeah, I started in 73. I started in Sir Patrick Dunn's, and I was there until 77 when I started my midwifery in Holles Street. And then when I was finished there, I went and I did spinal injuries then. And after that, I went home. I was on the farm for a few months, and I was in Kilcullen, which is our local town, and this woman approached me that I a neighbour, and she said, I hear you're not working. And I said, well, I said I'm at home. And she said, would you come over to the army? She said, they're looking for nurses for the moment. And I said, how long do they want me for? She said, oh, maybe about a month. And I said, oh yeah, I'll do a month, all right. And because I hadn't a notion of continuing nursing, right? I was farming. so anyway.
Is that the way it normally goes through?
So anyway, I went over anyway, and I was there. That was beginning of January 80, and I was there until mid-March when they took in, I was there temporary, and they took in, I think it was 10 nurses into the corp itself. And then I was let go then, and then I got a phone call in July, could I come back, because they had left, the nurses had left. So, and he said, yeah, and then there was interviews coming up in September, and they said, the matron said, you should go for the interview. So I did anyway, and I got the interview. So I started then was made permanent in December of that year, and I was in the general hospital for about maybe about a year, and then they were short-staffed. I wanted to do midwifery, and I said no, there was no vacancies in the midwifery hospital, and so I was in the general hospital.
You're all right. No, I'm here now. So in the general hospital, and was that where? In
the corp, they had two.
Yeah,
there were two hospitals. There was the general hospital, and then there was. So the general hospital they had ENT, a full theatre, medical, surgical, cadets ward, officers ward, and they had X-ray and all that. Outpatients, and then they had outpatients as well, and then over in the families, which was maternity, and they had a surgical ward, medical ward, a children's ward, an operating theatre, and maternity as well, and so it was all to do with the families, and it was the families of soldiers, not of officers. It was just the families of soldiers. So they were short-staffed over there, so I ended up moving over there, and I was over there for most of the time in the corp. Then I was doing midwifery, but it was full-on midwifery in the beginning. So we were doing deliveries, antenatal deliveries, postnatal, and
so you had a full obs and gynae.
Yeah, so there was an obs and gynae doctor there as well, and we were also connected to Holles Street, so it was recommended that the first deliveries be done on Holles Street. Then we did the antenatal. We took turns with the antenatal, so maybe this visit is in the families, and the next visit is the Holles Street used to have a clinic.
And the same probably postnatal then as well. Would you follow up with them then postnatal, or would the hospital follow up with the postnatal?
No, we did, but they went for their 6 weekly check back to Holles Street. But in the interim, we looked after them postnatally if they were discharged from Holles Street.
Yeah.
But also, even if we had delivered them, they did their 6 week check in Holles Street.
Okay.
And
so you would have had full facilities there in the camp. So for delivery and all that.
Yeah.
And
For normal deliveries.
And how many women, roughly, now at the peak time, say, would you have delivered a year? Would you have 2 or 3 a week, or?
We could even have 2 or 3 a day.
Okay.
And then we could
have a lull.
Have a lull, and then maybe to be, 2 or 3 a week, and then maybe there mightn't be anything for a few weeks.
You were full on, really, with it.
It was full on, yeah. So between the antenatal, and then if they needed rest, if they had hypertension or anything like that, or if they needed extra kind of care, we looked after them, and then they would be sent to the clinics in Hollow Street, either up to the hospital itself, or if they did they used to do a clinic in Naas, so they'd be sent into Naas to the clinic, or else if the obstetrician thought there was needed more care, they were
more
sent up.
Care,
yeah, they would be sent up to Hollow Street.
So there probably would have been no epidurals or anything like that during that period?
Absolutely not.
No. It was all natural labours.
Natural labours. Also, there would be the odd forceps, but that would be very rare.
Yeah.
That there would be a forceps. Also, if they had to need suturing, okay.
All that was done there.
All that was done there.
On-site.
Yeah.
So how many years did that work out for in the...
I think it was 86, that's part of it closed.
Okay.
It was supposed to have closed. And then we moved over to one of everything that we had. So the antenatal, postnatal, the children's section, the medical and the surgical, that all went over to one ward, and the outpatients over to the general. We're going over to the general ward. It's going over to the general hospital. But the deliveries were supposed to be finished.
Yeah.
So they had taken the incubator, all that kind of stuff, and all we had left was a delivery drum that was just for an emergency. But some of the women didn't have a notion of going to Hollow Street to be delivered, so they would come into us at the last minute.
I suppose they would have been women that had 3 or 4 children with you.
Or 5 or 6 or 7, and because they were supposed to go to Hollow Street after the 5th, so for the 6th delivery, which is all that was. Those numbers were normal then,
So these families would have lived on the campus, so they are.
Yes, yeah.
So you're dealing with a huge amount of people living on the campus, really, weren't you, families?
Yeah, and a lot of them wouldn't have cars or anything. A lot of them then didn't have cars, so up to the other, where we were in the families, and up the other side of the camp was nearly 2 miles.
Wow.
From one end of the camp to the other, and some of them would walk down.
Oh, the crate trains.
In labour, to see were they in labour.
They were tough out.
Yeah. So we'd examine them, and if they were in labour, you keep them. And
so did you spent more or less your full-time nursing in under the Army, the ANS, what was the Army?
Army Nursing Service, and it was started in 1924, officially it was started, but my grandfather and my uncle, his brother, they were both in the Army, and they were involved in when the Army was going down to the Curragh to take over from the British. Uncle Mick, grandfather's brother, one of his tasks was to go around to the hospitals in Dublin and ask the nurses there, would any of them come down with the Army, because there was still patients that couldn't be transferred.
Had to be looked after.
That had to be looked after.
Even the changeover.
Even the changeover. Yeah. Oh, and some of them would have been Irish, and would have been local people that were in the British Army and were going to stay anyway. Some of the orderlies would have been local people, and they weren't going. They were going to stay in Ireland, and then also if they had any casualties themselves. So they went around to various hospitals, and the nurses
really, was it?
Yeah, but the nurses that came with them, they marched down with the Army.
No way.
They weren't put on a train or.
Oh my word!
They actually marched with the Army down,
From the hospital.
From the various hospitals, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. That's a great story.
Yeah.
So how long did you spend, Myra, in the end?
So I was nearly 30 years in the army, full time, and then I took early retirement to look after my parents.
Yeah.
And then I went back. That wasn't working out too well, so I decided I'd go back part time.
Yeah.
So I went back anyway, two days a week, and then it went forward. And I was up in St. Brickens, the military hospital up in St. Brickens. So what I was doing up there was mainly, vaccinations, outpatients clinics and vaccinations. It was the main thing.
Oh, that would have been just for army personnel. Would it
Just
be,
just
so the
army
vaccinations you'd be given, would that be for, I suppose, some of the army corps that'd be going out to Lebanon?
Yeah, there was a lot of overseas, but also if you were a recruit or a cadet when you were coming in, you had to be checked. Yeah, you had to be checked that you had all your childhood vaccines, and then there would be tetanus and measles and mumps, and that would be updated if necessary, because to be out on the ground a lot and things like that, so they would need to be
tetanus
covered.
And all that, they would.
Yeah.
And did you enjoy your time there?
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
It's a very unusual career, wasn't it, to be a midwife in the like?
When you say
how
to
many
people,
of you would have been now as midwives there?
Well,
you would have been a very small cohort, I'd say.
Where there was 8 of us.
Yeah.
So the 8, and then there was what they call a staff sister. So a staff sister, I suppose, would be equated to maybe a staff sister would have so many wards. There wasn't actually a sister. So there was just the nurses and then the staff sister. And the staff sister usually would have 3 or 4 wards under her. But in the case of the families, there was one staff sister for the family's hospital. So she was there, and she was a midwife as well. And then 8 midwives. So there was one on night duty, one on nights off, and then there was 6 on days.
Yeah.
And then between days off, holidays and that. So maybe there definitely would be 3 or 4 on.
At any time?
At any time, yeah. Then in the evening you could be, depending on the way the duty as well, you could be on your own then in the evening. And
well, I'd say that must have been, like when you had a woman come in now to deliver and you were kind of there yourselves, it must have been, I know you would have a lot of instinct and you knew what you were doing, but still nerve-wracking really, wasn't it, to be there? Or did you feel there was a good support network there?
Well, it was very good support. If you needed it, was there.
Yeah.
And also there was the domestic staff were on duty 24 hours. So there was there would be domestic staff on at night. So she would be there, if patients needed,
tea and toast or
or whatever, or if they're after coming back from theatre, or then, they needed just tea outside meal times, she would be there. But also what she was able to do is, if you needed help, she'd be able to phone for you, because you mightn't be able to leave the patient. And if, she would be able to phone.
There's a bit of teamwork in it.
So you weren't actually on your own, because there was somebody there.
But you would have had a lovely rapport with the families. They would have known you well. You would have known each other very well, all of you. Because you were living they were living in the campus, and you would have been working with them practically on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So you would have personally known a lot of your patients.
Yeah. And if you ever wanted to meet your patients, you go into Dunnes Stores in Newbridge on a Wednesday.
You find them all there.
You find them nearly all there. It's because Wednesday is payday, so they do their usually do the weekly shopping on the Wednesday.
Is that amazing?
Yeah, but you meet a lot of them, and they'll always know you, because you think it's you're left a long time, but they would have forgotten about you and that, but no, they know you. Yeah.
Oh no, but you were trusted.
Or somebody come up and say to you, "You delivered me,"
Imagine.
Yeah, and then what's your name? You're trying to,
remember. Yeah, you'd remember them once they mention the name.
Yeah, you remember
well,
them.
People change so much, and they're only babies when you deliver them.
Yeah, but obviously the parents have pointed me out at some stage to say. Yeah.
So any complicated birth then, or something might happen, they'd be shipped off to Hollis Street.
Yeah.
And you would accompany that patient then, or would?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they always had somebody with them, and which meant then, so if you were in there in the evening and you happened to be on your own in the evening or at night, and you had to accompany a patient, if there was even though they weren't practicing midwifery over in the general hospital, but if there was an actual midwife on, somebody with a midwifery qualification,
even an on-call person,
she would be asked to go over, which then left one night nurse on for the whole of the general hospital.
So you'd be trying to get there quick and back.
Yeah, because sometimes what would happen now, a lot of everybody had to stay in. A lot of them weren't married, so you were staying in accommodation there, and if you knew somebody was around and they weren't going to be on tomorrow, you'd ring over and say, look, can you get Marion up, or can you get so and so up, and ask them to come over
to give you a hand.
Yeah,
if they got busy.
Yeah.
There was always people on campus you could call on.
Yeah.
It was great, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, even though they weren't on call, they never got paid for being on call.
Yeah. There was the camaraderie.
Yeah.
Really, between you, same as you would with the soldiers.
Yeah.
There was an understanding.
But they give us the expression we have. We would give each other a dig out, you know.
Yeah.
So you'd know that you could call on somebody.
And were they obstetricians? Would they have been on call as well for something, or?
No, they were never on call. There was only just one. They were never on call. But if you wanted them, and if you were phoning them at home, they knew that they were needed.
Yeah, and they come.
And they would come. Yeah.
But then, they wouldn't have lived too far from the camp.
No, they either lived in the one that I worked with mostly. He lived in Newbridge.
Yeah, so they were never too far.
No.
So you moved to Brickens then. So how long were you?
I was about 13 years in Brickens.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're kind of half and half really between.
Yeah, well, I was actually nursing 50 years.
Oh my gosh. It's a great career. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Do you see it as an unusual career that you had, and the value on it? I mean, it's no longer there now, so has its place in history, as do you with it. I really feel it's like nearly a privilege, isn't it, that you got to do that?
Yes, yeah.
And especially with the history with your grandfather being an army man as well, like.
Yeah.
It's still there as well.
Yeah.
Isn't it really?
Yeah, because when I was doing the interview for the army, they asked me, had anybody in the army? No, I haven't, no. Are you sure you've nobody in that? No, I don't know of nobody in the army. Are you sure?
Yeah, they knew. And
then it suddenly dawned, are you sure you've nobody? Oh yeah, my grandfather.
Yeah. You forget.
But I always remember grandfather as, as a farmer.
As a retired man.
Yeah. Even though he still had his sword and his uniform and all the rest of it, and that was there on the sword was always on display on the wall. It still didn't connect that. Oh yeah, I should be telling them.
You'd be nervous on the day as well, when you're doing the interview. So you kind of you draw a blank, wouldn't you, really, with stuff like that. But I do think it's a lovely.
But I'm the only one in my family that, and even Uncle Mick's family, his grandfather's younger brother. There's nobody. He's nobody in the army, and I was the only one in the army.
So it kind of stayed with them, and then you brought the nursing part of it.
Yeah.
Where your grandmother was the midwife.
Yeah.
She did the best of both worlds. She was in the army as a midwife.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great legacy to have, Myra, really.
But you have an army number, so you have an army number. You had an army uniform, but we didn't have to take an oath.
Yeah.
But we were still under military law.
Of course.
So it was kind of an ambiguous situation. We were in the army, we weren't in the army,
Yeah.
So it's kind of in the army when it suited them, and we weren't.
I suppose there's rules.
When we should have been get paid for certain things, we weren't in the army.
I know, but there was the time really. There was a lot of hospitals or any other work you would have done a lot of work that you didn't get paid for. It was just the time that was in it. It was more good consideration and just been a good employee, I suppose, that you would have done these things, and you would have looked out for one another. It wouldn't have been all about money either.
No, it was never all about money.
No,
never.
No, it was all about looking after one another.
It was all about looking after one another and making sure, if some of the patients you knew were in difficult situations and things weren't well, and you kind of be, you might say something to somebody else and they'd say, oh yeah, so and so might help with that.
Yeah.
and to get them some help for
You
that.
would have
You know,
had PTSD, I'd say, a lot too. People.
yeah, and it was never that wasn't recognised at all.
No, it wouldn't have been. It's only in the last number of years. So I mean, you would have seen a lot of difficult. I know you can't discuss that, but you would have seen a lot of difficult cases. A lot of that the ordinary person wouldn't have understood.
No, and when they went, one of the medical sergeants, he used to do all the vaccinations, and
so the women, I suppose, you would have got a lot of women coming in the late 70s, I suppose, and early 80s then as army personnel, not just for coming in as a pregnant wife.
Yeah, I think it's 82.
Yeah,
that they started taking in. The first female officer that I saw was Peggy Flanagan, Margaret Flanagan. She was a doctor. She was the first female officer, and then sometime after that, then they started taking in soldiers, female soldiers. So that was
saw huge changes. Like.
Absolutely, and you know,
you would have seen
the men trying to work out the dynamics of where these women were going to
go,
where they were going to go, where they were going to stay.
And, you know, it's just taken for granted now, like, but it was a huge change, even for the Gardaí as well. And, all these.
But you could just imagine them, if they're going out on the ground out in the glen, how are they going to deal with these women?
They were tough though, the women, weren't they? I mean, going into an all-male environment.
Yeah.
They were super.
Yeah, but a lot of them that would have been from army backgrounds, which they would have helped.
Yeah,
fathers and uncles and grandfathers and that. So that would have helped.
Yeah.
They
would have had a good understanding. Of what
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
So you retired then.
So I retired last February 23.
So you're only just retired.
Yeah.
Do you miss it at times?
I miss the work. I miss the people.
Yeah.
But I do not miss the commute. That's why I actually decided to stop.
Yeah.
I could be 5 hours in the car.
But you loved your time there.
Yeah.
Hard work, but
it was and different work, and also what we like any kind of nurses that are on my own age they're working is the computer.
Yeah.
Because everything was handwritten, and we had even like carbon paper when we were doing reports. The army loved copies of everything, so there was carbon copies. So you had to have the carbon paper,
the colour paper. Yes.
To so when you're writing reports of that, so that there was a copy of it.
Yeah.
And then to go from that then to the computer, you know, it was just
very difficult.
Yeah.
It is difficult. When you don't grow up with it, it's different for kids now. They don't know a word without them.
Yeah.
But when you're going from everything handwritten.
But if you said a carbon copy to they wouldn't know what you were talking about.
Yeah. But I'd say you'll miss it.
Oh, I do miss it. Yeah. But I went up a few times to empty the locker, and I take out a few things, and then I go. So anyway, there about 3 weeks ago, I went up to empty my locker. Now there was no pressure on me, because any time I went up to the OC, which is the commanding officer, and the mate were there, they said, "Any chance you'll come back?
Oh,
you can work any hours you like."
Isn't that lovely to be loved and thought of?
I said,
like that.
If you can beam me in, I said, I'll be here.
Yeah.
I said, but
the commute is shocking.
You know, it's only 19 miles from where I live to Brickens. And it could be, what really brought it home to me, I worked all through COVID. So what really brought it to me was it used to take me 25 minutes to get from my door to the door in Brickens. And I wasn't breaking any speed limits. And if the lights were red, it might take 30 minutes. You know, when I got hit Dublin, I might have the red lights. And then go from that up to 2.5 hours.
Oh, jeepers.
If there was
5 hours out of your day.
Yeah, if there was an incident.
Yeah, that's desperate.
Yeah.
Did you ever go foreign just before we finish up?
No, I didn't. No, but some
of them did.
Yeah, but the reason I didn't go is quite simple. I'm allergic to mosquitoes.
Okay. So that's
and my life would have been very, very miserable.
Yeah.
If I had gone, because people used to say, "But just put your name at the end of the list." I said, "If I put my name on the list,
it means you're going.
They'll probably pick me out." You know, I'm not first and I'm the last. I said, "But they'll probably pick me out." I said, "I'm not taking that chance."
So they've told you stories then of them been out there with the differences of you know, would they've been, I suppose, probably doing
Yeah,
more
some of them went
vaccinations and
Yeah, some of them went. Some of them went. Mary McAleese's husband, Martin. He and one of the theatre sisters, our own theatre sisters, Emily McDonough, himself, Martin, and another army nurse. Sorry, two other army nurses, Margaret Grealish and Jonah Carl. Three nurses were kind of running the theatre. They were going out to. It's in Central America.
oh gosh,
Not Ecuador. It was some of those countries they were going out to, and it was a kind of a charity thing. But the army were organising it, because. But they were down near a river, and they said anything like the mosquitoes. I was lucky, but they said they were coming from. They were obviously there were a lot of local tribes that were coming to. So there were, you know,
for health.
Yeah. So it was, as I say, there was a theatre there, and then also Martin McAleese was doing dental work. And I think there was 2 trips in that particular area. I'm trying to think of the country now and I can't. And but people were coming even in on wheelbarrows.
Oh God, help them.
They had no transport. They were, walked. And one family had walked about 100 miles to get treatment. And so that was on their first trip. So they decided then that they'd go again. So I think it was about maybe 9 months later they went again.
Experience to have with the army.
Yeah.
For the nursing, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah. And another assignment was after the Balkan Wars. Ireland were involved with the UN, and they were in Sarajevo they were in. So some of the army nurses went out there. They have never spoken about it.
Yeah, it's horrendous, I'd say, what they saw.
So what they heard or what they were told or what they saw.
And what they were nursing. Coming in. It must have been very tough.
Yeah, so they, even though they were only out for 2 weeks, they've never spoken about it.
Yeah, it's very tough.
Whereas we got a good report about Central American one.
Yeah.
Even though the power
it's a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
It's different, you know, when you're going out to service on a voluntary basis to service local people and give them treatment.
Yeah.
That's all people happy to come in and get looked after. But when you're dealing with war, you're dealing with the aftermath of really difficult times.
Well, the Irish Army, because they're peacekeepers, they have a kind of an edge on when they're in local areas. So what they do is the doctors would do clinics and see local people and things like that.
Yeah.
And if they had medication,
try and give them the best service they can. Under the circumstances.
Yeah, because they wouldn't, and that's free, whereas they wouldn't have money for their own doctors.
But they're relying too on stuff being let in, aren't they? Really, like the food being let in, like Gaza now, trying to let food in. They're under awful pressure to try and get stuff in.
Yeah.
But what an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And you were lucky now that neighbour asked you to go in there. I mean, isn't it amazing to have that? To have such a unique job as a midwife.
She'd have been quite happy at home though.
At the farm.
On the farm. That's it.
Just delivering your animals.
I hadn't a notion. Well, there was 4 Christmases in a row that we had cesarean sections.
Yeah.
On the farm.
On the farm.
On the farm. Yeah. So anyway,
sections were never done though on the army campuses.
No,
they were always
even though the theatre was there and that, but it wasn't used much when I was there because they usually went over to the
Hollis Street then.
Yeah, no, they usually were, if it was, say it was a general thing, so say if they needed their gallbladder out or the appendix, they usually went over to the general hospital. It
was only emergencies only at the theatre.
Yeah, because we only had, at that stage, we only had one anaesthetist. There wasn't 2, so that's why a lot of the stuff went over to the general. So and they would come back to us and we'd do postnatal, post theatre care.
So when did the midwifery end of it wind down? Was that in the 90s or?
Officially.
Yeah, officially. I know you said you had a few women, but officially it was...
Oh, officially it was kind of 87, 88.
Okay,
But
the
it went
late
on
80s.
for a long time after that.
Yeah. Well, you see, you can't blame the women either because they were used to the
Well, we used to have to
services
hide we used to have to hide the delivery drum. Because they took when we went over to the general hospital, we had heard we were going over. There was a rumour, so somebody was quick enough to hide things. So when they came in to move everything over,
The difference.
so the drum was hid. The incubator we had a portable incubator that was hid. There was other things hid, so we had them.
They were still there if needed.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
as far as the army were concerned, they weren't there.
Yeah.
Right, and then of course word got around that we're still doing deliveries.
You weren't charged for that, were you? In the army.
Court martial.
So this drum, what was the drum? You tell me what... For
So in the
that
drum-
so people that don't know what the drum is, you
So
explain
in the drum, it's a stainless steel drum, and it opens up like a kiln. You know the kiln jars.
Yeah.
So it opens up like that, and in that there was anything we needed for a delivery.
all your instruments.
All
and
the instruments,
swabs and
swabs, yeah, and the clip, for the umbilical cord.
Yeah.
Everything was in that.
So as it was used, then you'd re-clean it and set it
Yeah,
up
yeah,
all
yeah,
again for the
yeah,
next
yeah.
delivery.
And then we were in with the theatre assistant so that she would autoclave it for us.
Oh, very good. Oh, no. So
Yeah.
officially the late 80s, but it went on for a number of years. Just,
A number of
well,
years
the last
after that.
stragglers are women that wanted to
Yeah,
finish
yeah.
up with the...
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
Yeah, they were in the army.
Yeah.
There's nobody living on campus now like that anymore, is there?
Oh, there are still people.
Oh, there is still people on campus, yeah.
There is still people living in the camp. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Now, when I went there, some of the accommodation, a lot of the accommodation there was an outside loo.
Yeah.
There was only cold water in the houses. You had a Belfast sink in the scullery with a tap, and that was it. So when you're trying to do a delivery up in the houses with that equipped,
Bring boiling water with you nearly.
neighbours are all in boiling water for you.
Yeah.
We've everything ready now.
Yeah. It was just like a village.
Yeah.
Same so in the village, the women would come in and boil the water and get the toilets
Oh no, they
ready.
did everything.
Tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did everything,
Right.
and all you had to literally do was deliver the baby. Get had everything ready for you. Yeah.
That's
What did you want the boiling water for?
Sterilising.
Sterilising.
I wondered.
Yeah.
Sterilising.
Sterilising. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeping everything clean.
Yeah. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
What a job.
Yeah.
You've won a very few over the years, like.
So you could, you would know when you would get one of those calls to go up to the accommodation to do that, and you knew when you got the call that you
had to go.
You had to go, and also that that
Because the women tend to leave it last minute.
Yeah, it was imminent. Sometimes you just go in, and all you could just put your hand on the head,
and it's there. Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose you'd never get fed up watching deliveries if you were, if you had a love of your
No,
midwifery.
I think everybody does get very emotional.
Yeah. Especially because you were so close with the women.
Because it's such a miracle,
Yeah, it is a lovely miracle.
Yeah.
You do have to be a certain person.
Yeah. It never. Sorry now.
Oh, no, don't get to apologise. It's lovely.
Yeah,
And
very,
you were
very
close to the women. And then the relief, I suppose, of everybody's safe and well.
Yeah,
And the baby's delivered and everything's grand. And this is what midwifery is about. The kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been shown through and through. And you can see it here now. I'm getting emotional looking at you getting emotional. What we like. But it's
People talk about miracles, and that's the biggest miracle of all time.
and once mommy and baby were safe.
Yeah, and you would never ever get tired of it.
No, you don't. You can't get tired of it.
No.
You finish up your job if you get tired of it.
Yeah.
You just finish up.
Yeah.
Well, we leave it there before we get too more emotional, and you'll be killing me. Well, thanks a million, Myra. That was
Thank
a
you.
lovely interview.